Okay. Um, so today we are going to talk about American folk marine art. And also I just want to go over some things from last week. So some deadlines coming up. I put these in the email, but I just wanted to tell you all deadlines. So I want you to submit your Turner analysis by 5 p.m. Um, and that the instructions for that are also online. Um, and also submit your shipwreck drawing by Wednesday at noon. So you will also do that via Brightspace. And that is just a sketch, just kind of looking for you all to interpret the poem that we read. The reason being is one of the images that we looked at last week, the image that was on our Brightspace, was influenced by the poem. So Turner, the artist and painter Turner, painted the shipwreck painting in response to the poem that you all read. So it was just an activity to see how you all responded to the poem as well. So we will look at that for a second, just so you have an idea. And the painting that I was referring to is here. So this is the poem that I was referring, or the painting that I was referring to, the shipwreck painting that was influenced by the poem that you all read. So, any questions about that? Unmute yourself and let me know if you have any questions about those two assignments that are due this week. The Turner analysis, as well as the shipwreck drawing. Okay. So we are going to talk a little bit about landscape composition. And of course, art is open to your interpretation. You can make the composition, but there are rules to composition. And like everything, you can break the rules, but it's best to know the rules before you break them, so that you have a reason as to why you're breaking them. So we'll look at those composition landscape rules. Just getting my screen ready to share. Okay, so here are a few basic rules. And composition is the way in which a artwork is arranged. And the perspective that it's drawn in or painted in, the color, the light values, these all go into the composition. So the first rule, place the horizon line somewhere above or below the midpoint. Don't place the horizon line in the middle. Does anyone know why you wouldn't want to place it in the middle? Unmute yourself and shout out if you have an idea. Anyone?
It'll make it a bit too uniform.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jake. It'll make it too uniform. It'll also just cut the piece in half. So you'll look at it in two parts, not necessarily the flow of the piece as we're looking for, but just kind of the upper quadrant and the lower quadrant. Great. So there's also a 1/3 rule. So imaginary lines divide the paper into thirds. So you're placing the center of interest at one of the intersection of the lines. Why do you think you would do that? Why would placing it one of the intersections work best? Why? Anyone?
Do our eyes tend to look there when we first look at a drawing? Like that's where it goes immediately instead of a corner?
Yeah, it helps us move our eyes around instead of something being in the center. Then it's like a bullseye. You just look at that center piece, whereas in the 1/3 rule and the center, place the center of interest at one of the intersections, it's helping you look around the whole piece and not just, bullseye. Great. Okay, so number 3, use design elements that create a visual path to the center of interest. Why?
Would it give you the point of focus on
Yeah,
the paper, the painting?
yeah, exactly. It helps emphasize that point of interest, and it leads your eye into that, creating a visual path, leading your eye around the work of art. Number 4, the center of interest, whether it's located, should have the strongest color with the most contrast. And the strongest color could be black, or the strongest color could be white or a fluorescent orange. But once again, it's putting like a spotlight on the subject matter that you are focusing on in the piece. So have some kind of horizontal, vertical, and diagonal design elements. This kind of mixes it up. It makes your piece more dynamic and more interesting. So pathways and trails, rivers or roads should be curved paths, not straight lines. Why do you think that is? What is the benefit of a curved path rather than a straight line?
If it has a curved path, it will show like the direction of like where so that when the person's viewing the art piece, that it makes them have this vision that they're actually going into the piece.
Yes, and it creates movement. It creates movement, not just we're going into this one point, but how your eye moves. So, and then do not start a visual path from the exact corner. It's better to start from a little above or to the side of the corner. Once again, that's just moving your eye around the piece. And then do not have vertical objects leaning outward. Do not have the obvious X shapes in objects that are crossing. What do you think the point of that would be? Why do we not want X shapes in our piece?
Is it because it's distracting?
Yeah, it could be distracting. Why else? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the X would act as a focal point. Same thing, kind of like that doesn't really exist in nature too much. I think like that type of lines, so your eyes would be naturally drawn to it and be distracting.
Yeah, great, totally. X marks the spot, if you think about it. So your eye will go straight to an X. But once again, and also vertical objects leaning outwards, that's leading the viewer's eye out of the piece. So away from what you're looking at, away from the subject matter. Great. So of course there will be, you might find a reason as to why you want to break one of these rules. Maybe that you do want an X in the middle of your piece because you are trying to kind of stop the viewer's eye in one specific section. But once again, it's important to learn these rules just as you're looking at artwork, try and think about them, and also as you're making your compositions, take them into consideration. But of course, you won't be it won't impact your grade if you do break one of these rules, because you should have obviously a reason to do so, these things. Great. So also that PDF is on Brightspace. So if you want to look at it again, it's always there to reference. So I do have a question for you all. What is the easiest document for you to read? What document format? Is it JPEG, PDF, a Word doc? What is the easiest for you all to access?
I'm open to anything, PDF, Word, anything's fine with me.
Okay. Anyone else have something that works the best on their device or the easiest thing to open?
Probably PDF.
PDF? Okay, great. I'm going to try and stick to making all the documents PDFs. Sometimes I'll have long slideshows, and I'll just turn those into PDFs as well if you don't have PowerPoint downloaded on your computer. Should make it easier. So the next thing we are going to do is we're going to look at some slides of artisans at sea. And this artwork comes from the United States. We're going to be doing a lot of traveling around the world and looking at different art forms. But we're going to start here at some traditional American folk art work that has to do with maritime. Where is my... Can you all see that?
No.
Okay. Thank you. It's always a little clunky doing this online, but okay, so this part of this slideshow is from an exhibition that is at the Maritime Museum in San Francisco at the seaport. So a lot of artwork is made aboard ship. You have a lot of time to focus on craft and to focus on process. So we will look at a number of art forms. So this is scrimshaw. Scrimshaw is carving onto whalebone or baleen or whale tooth. And this, you can see, this is a close-up of a stay. It's a corset stay, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is. But the process of this is obtaining, this is very popular art form during the whaling era. Especially in New England, you might be on a whaling ship for up to 3 years, so find yourself a hobby. So this is a token of love that a sailor made for someone that was on shore. Here they've drawn a picture of their town, and this is all inscribed with a small needle. So often sail needles were used, so the artisan would inscribe this onto a piece of bone, and then using soot or some type of oil, they would rub it into the surface, and that's where we get those darker lines. This is another corset stay. Here, this artist has put a bunch of different symbols. Here they have a ring of laurel leaves, an eagle, very delicately drawn flowers. So these were souvenirs that would be given to those family members that were left at home during these long whaling journeys. So this is a corset, and the stay would go here in the middle. Corsets were extremely uncomfortable garments worn by women, and one aspect of them was that they had something called boning in them, and boning, this comes from these whale bones that we've looked at before, and this corset was intended to make a female figure, an hourglass figure, but once again, they were very uncomfortable, but you would insert your stay right here in the middle of your corset. And that's why sailors would often make these corset stays. They were love letters that then would go along their love's chest here. So, does anyone know what this is, this tool? I can't see chat right now, so shout it out if you have a guess or an idea. So this is a pie wheel or a pastry wheel. This was meant to cut up pastry dough. It's a small hand tool, but this is an example of an object that was made by someone on a whaling ship. Once again, it was made of whalebone or baleen or whale tooth, and then pretty intricately carved. And this is this piece has multiple moving parts in it. So just to show some of their mechanics and engineering with this art form. Here we have a number of other very decorative pastry crimpers, pastry cutters. I know some of you all are bakers. And here they're very detailed and ornate. These pieces of bone would then be sanded down to a very smooth shine. You can see that there are initials drawn in at certain points. The feathers on the eagles have been pop because of rubbing soot into the depressions or the line work. And this might be something that you might think of more typically as scrimshaw, where here we actually have the tooth intact. And this is a portrait of the whaling ship. You can see here in the foreground, in the front, we have a whale. There's the American flag flying. So we have an idea about the ship that this sailor was aboard. So it just gives us a view and a souvenir of this voyage. Scrimshaw is also a way for people on board to tell stories about their adventures, to tell stories about whale hunting. And here we have a whole narrative. We see the ship as well as the whales in different positions. We see those in smaller watercraft trying to catch the whale. So this is a very dynamic piece of scrimshaw in that it tells a whole story. It also gives you details about the ship, how many sails there were, the rigging. So it's a very important artifact for us to see what life on board a whaling ship was like. Here's some other objects that would have been made aboard ship. Small game pieces, some rings, a stamp. So these pieces would be made by all sailors, but as we've seen, different varying degrees of skill and craft. Here we have a complete domino set. It's been intricately cut. There's holes have been drilled into the box. We have a lid, as you can see, with a whale carved on it. So a lot of time and effort and resources went into making this. Here's a portrait of someone. This might be a self-portrait, or it might be a portrait drawn of a shipmate. This is another scene here, a very brave group fishing for whaling here. Once again, it tells us a little bit about what it was like to be on one of these whaling adventures, the labor that went into it, some of the mishaps, and the danger. So this was a great way for those aboard ship to share with those onshore the danger of this lifestyle. Here's another more souvenir piece, the laying of the Atlantic cables from 1858 between Britain and the United States. Here we see what type of ships were used, and it is an important commemorative piece. And more utilitarian objects here. We have cane toppers. This object in the upper center would be a tool that someone would use to wind yarn. So for knitting or for weaving or tapestry work. So this is a really beautifully made piece that would be produced on the ship and then brought back as a souvenir to a loved one. Here we have another narrative of a whaling ship. It gives us a story. Up in the upper quadrant here we have the ship reaching land. We have crazy whale mishaps, and it just gives us this obviously was before photography, so and not a lot of artisans were going on these long, or artists were going on these long whaling voyages and painting. So we have these really great and important illustrations done on scrimshaw. This is scrimshaw that was made by the Chukotka. Chukotka is a region in the far east of Siberia, and it became part of the Soviet Union in the 1920s. And Chukotka's earliest walrus ivory carvings were made as souvenirs for Russian and American sailors. So this Chukotkan scrimshaw, here we can see the daily lives of the Chukotka people, but these were influenced by American scrimshaw and used then as souvenirs. These are more contemporary. These are post-1920s, so you can tell there's some more contemporary imagery. There's some steamships, and we see some communist statues, things of that sort. But once again, it gives us a really nice view of the area and what daily life was like for the Chukotka people. So these are knot boards. This was a way for sailors to show off their knot tying skills. Many of these are decorative knots, but these knots would be intricately tied and then posted on a knot board. We'll see many different styles of knot boards. This is a knot board by a very experienced seaman. Here they have labeled all of the knots and arranged them with an interesting composition. Even things like knot boards, composition is important. So there's 44 knots included on this board. And here is a very intricately tied knot piece. I think this took several years to make. And here's another knot board here. The individual labeled each knot with a tiny little plaque. And if you're interested in knot tying, this could be something you might want to do for your final project. There have been students in the past who got into knot tying or maybe had a book of 1,000 different knots to tie. So this could be a future project for some of you if you're interested. Also, this is not an American art, but I wanted to throw it in with the knot tying. There is a specific type of knitting called the Aran jumper or the cable knit sweater. So the majority of the Aran Island inhabitants were either farmers or fishermen whose lives were deeply intertwined. It was this environment that Aran sweaters were born as something that both united and differentiated the inhabitants of the Aran Islands. And the sweater will have approximately 100,000 stitches and can take months to complete. I know that we have some knitters in the class, so I'm sure you can understand that. And here are the Aran Islands here off the coast of Ireland. So these sweaters were knit by wives and mothers to keep the island's fishermen warm in stormy winter seas. At first, the Aran sweater was even waterproof. Crafting the sweater with unscored wool retains its natural lanolin oil and made it water resistant. So here we have a photograph of a bunch of fishermen in their Aran jumpers or their cable knit sweaters. So each stitch and pattern is a traditional symbol. Many are Catholic and have Christian significance, reflecting the spirituality of the islanders who crafted them. This was a Catholic island. And here from this example, you can see the different stitches. So the honeycomb, the symbol of hardworking bee industry and efficiency were important values for the islanders. A cable, a tribute to the fisherman's daily life, a prayer for safety, good luck while fishing, a diamond, a blessing for success and wealth, and the basket weave, a symbol for fisherman's basket representing hope of a plentiful catch. So this sweater would be crafted with these messages woven into them, or knitted into them, I should say. So the next art form we're going to look at are woolies. Woolies, these are all hand sewn. And there's small beading at the top and the bottom, but everything else is just thread that's been sewn by hand over and over. And woolies get the name from taking wool from anything a sailor could find, from an old sweater to a rag, any type of wool or thread that they could pull. They would then use to create these decorative images. Here we have the ship in the center. So these are paintings made of thread. And this is actually the type of artwork that I do. None of these pieces are mine, but I do make paintings with thread, meaning I hand sew these images with thread. And from these woolies, we have an idea of what these ships looked like. This is a British ship here. And you can tell that the direction of the thread differentiates the different pieces of the work. So for example, these sails are going at a diagonal. The background is going at a horizontal line work. And these sails are going vertical. So that's one way with using all the same color that the artist was able to create texture and also differentiate the shapes. Here's another image, and this is interesting in that we're looking at a number of ships, but we're looking at it from the water perspective into the cove that these ships are about to dock in. And here's a larger piece. Here they've stylized or they've created the sky in a more symbolic than manner, showing the different colors of the sky than in a representational manner. It doesn't necessarily look exactly what a sky would look like, but you do get the idea from the colors and the movement. Next, we're going to talk about figureheads, ship figureheads. You all will be reading an article as well. So these were the front of ships. Ship owners would have very finely carved wooden figureheads. They would often be painted. Sometimes they would depict a family member of the ship owners. Sometimes they would represent bravery or friendship or just a significant figure that the ship owner identified with. So here's I believe this is a family member of the ship owner. There's a grand eagle that was on the front of the ship. Obviously, as a ship was coming at you, it made a large impact. You have the grand golden eagle. Here's the face, a finely carved face of a woman, and this has been carved as well, or sorry, painted as well to help the figurehead to really pop. And for your assignment on Wednesday, you will be drawing a figurehead of your choice. So let's go over that assignment. This is an illustration sketch from an artist named Steve Light. He makes illustrated books. So these are some of his thumbnail sketches of different ideas of what he wants the figurehead of the ship to look like. And here are a number of different ways that you could illustrate this, from a full figure to a bust. A bust is pretty much from the waist up. It could be a scroll, a very ornate scroll, a lion signifying bravery. There's a ram bow, which is ironclad cast iron figure. Here we have a crest of probably the ship owner, an ironclad. So this is very brave. This might be a vessel going to battle. And then the steel hull of a clipper type stem, so has a smaller figurehead. Does anyone have any questions about what we just looked at, about the art forms, backstories of anything? No? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the assignment that you all will be doing Thursday. So for Thursday, this assignment will be due. When is this due? It's due next week. So you'll have, it's due September 9th by 3 p.m. And so you're gonna draw a figurehead on a boat or ship of your choice. It can be a figurehead for an aircraft carrier, a clipper ship, a galleon, a tugboat, a canoe, a container ship, whatever type of ship you would like to choose. First, you're gonna decide what kind of ship or boat you want. And ask yourself, who or what do you want leading your ship and why? So you're going to choose a boat or ship to draw the front half of, leaving room on the paper for a figurehead. Also included on Brightspace, I've put a quick 4-minute video tutorial if you want to brush up on drawing a ship. It's basic outline of a ship. You don't have to use the ship, of course. You can use any ship of your choice, but if you are looking for a more kind of traditional clipper ship looking ship, this tutorial will help. On a separate sheet of paper, you'll sketch out at least 3 different figurehead designs, and we saw that from the slideshow. It can be quick sketches. Do you want it to be a unicorn? Do you want it to be your pet cat? Do you want it to be someone that your mom? So then on the separate sheet of paper, you'll draft up 3 different designs. Also, make sure you're using the front angle of the bow as the base for your sketch. This is important because if you are drawing your cat upright and the ship that you decide to draw has a pretty severe angle, you'll want to, it's easier if you start with the angle of the front of the ship and then add the figure onto that. From there, once you have your kind of 3 thumbnail sketches, you'll add that figurehead to the ship drawing, and then you'll add color and detail to the ship and background. Once you're finished, you'll photograph your drawing and submit it to the discussion forum figurehead drawings. And this drawing should take quite a bit of time, about 2 hours, so take your time. Of course, I'm not timing you. I don't know exactly how long you're going to take on this drawing, but take your time, perfect your details in your sketch. Yeah, and hopefully you'll enjoy this project. Does anyone have any questions about that assignment? No? So it can be anything of your choice, any type of watercraft of your choice, and then whatever you choose for the figurehead to be. And we're going to talk a little bit about critique. The Turner assignment that you all completed or are working on is a bit of a critique. So we'll talk more about what a formal critique is. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so what is a critique? It's an oral or written discussion strategy used to analyze, describe, or interpret works of art. They help hone persuasive oral and writing information, gathering, and justification skills. Here's a sample set of focus questions for an art critique related to 4 major areas of art criticism. So describing the piece, analyzing what you see, your interpretation of the piece. This, for example, this painting has very dark, severe colors. I believe that it is foreshadowing that something terrible is about to happen, largely because there's a large wave coming at a diagonal headed for this ship. So also, the number of questions and aspects of specifically will vary according to the art form and number of works in the critique. So just an object, if an artist makes maybe just an object of a peanut, you'll have a different critique than if you're looking at a painting of a shipwreck, for example. So in your description, you're going to describe the work without using value words. So you don't need to say this is an ugly painting. You're just describing it. So also think about the title, who made this, when was this work created, and that will help you, identify what's going on in the painting and the time period. So also describe the elements of the work, line movement. We talked about that a bit in composition. How are lines, or how is your eye moving around the piece? The light, space. So oftentimes you'll find a painting where one figure is highlighted. So obviously the artist is trying to direct your eye to that central figure, that central subject matter. Describe the technical qualities of the work, the tools or the materials, and in the Turner analysis, the 2 paintings that you're looking at are done with different paint. One is oil paint and one is watercolor. And then describe the subject matter. What is it all about? Are there recognizable images? In your analysis, you're going to describe how the work is organized as a complete composition. So how is it planned? What type of movement is there? What are some of the similarities throughout the work? In this work, there are 7 American flags. What is this artist trying to emphasize by including this repetition of symbolism? What are the relationships among the figures in the piece? And then most importantly, interpretation. Describe how the work makes you think or feel. Describe the expressive qualities you find in the work. What expressive language would you use to describe the qualities? Does the work remind you of other things you've experienced? And how does the work relate to other ideas or events in the world and/or in other studies? So we could be looking at a painting from the 1800s, but an aspect of it might relate to elements in our world today or events happening in our world today. And then judgment and evaluation. Present your opinion of the work's success or failures. And of course, all of this is based on your interpretation. So if I look at a painting, I might see something totally different than you. My interpretation of the painting might be completely different than what the maker of the painting or the artwork was intending. But once an artwork leaves an artist's hand, it is then the public's job to interpret what they see and to make those decisions. Of course, we can always read interviews or read up on what was going on in the artist's life or what they intended for the painting, but that doesn't mean that that will always hold up or that will speak to everyone. So it's helpful to make notes on key parts of the work, develop an understanding of the main argument or purpose being expressed in the work, and consider how the work relates to a broader issue or context. Does anyone have any questions about that? I know it's all a little dry, but these are some important things we need to talk about, especially at the beginning of the semester. Once again, this is on Brightspace, so if you want to brush up on that, it is there as well. Let's see. The other thing that we are going to do today is we're going to talk about how you will be graded in this class. Of course, it's art, so there's no right or wrong. There's no black or white. You don't get a question wrong, but there is a way to evaluate art, and there is a way. Obviously, this is a college course, so you will be getting a grade in this class. But I think it's important to get everyone's input in how this will be done. Also, everyone in this class has a different skill level. Drawing might not be your favorite thing in the world. It might be stressful and challenging to you. Or it might be your favorite thing. You draw 30 minutes every day and you always have, and you're really excited about it. But that doesn't mean that the person who's more experienced should get an A, and if drawing isn't your favorite thing, you should get a D. So we're gonna look at some parameters of grading, get some ideas, and then we're going to do some breakout groups. And I want you all to kind of think about these things in a group. You'll have an opportunity to kind of discuss what these ideas are and how you think you should be graded in this class. So we're going to look at some things to think about while you are in your breakout group. I'm going to screen share this real quick and then do some breakout groups. So one thing I want you all to think about in your breakout groups are, what ways have you been evaluated in the past? So have you taken an art class in the past? Did you feel burned? Did you feel like the grading was fair? Have you never taken an art class before, and so you're not really sure what to expect? What does effort look like? What does effort look like? So think about that. And what is a valuable criterion to evaluate progress? Also, some ways that art is graded on skill, craft, creativity, effort, and did you follow instructions? Did you complete the assignment, or were you, instead of drawing a figurehead, you decided to just draw an airplane? Is time invested in a project always a reflection of quality? And what is the value of risk or failure? Obviously, you can learn so much from putting risk into a project, or the failure of a project. You can learn so much. And what is originality? So I want you all to think about those. I'm going to put you into some breakout groups. And then, so everyone will be put into a group. You'll have an opportunity in your group to talk about these things, what you think the most productive way to be graded. I'll take all of those ideas and thoughts, and then we'll create a rubric out of them. So. So we'll put 3 to 4 participants in a room. And this does it automatically. I haven't created these, so. So I will give you all about 10 minutes. I'll screen share. I'll give you all 10 minutes to think about what we just talked about. Come up with some ideas that you think are important, aren't important, how, what you think the most productive way to be graded is. And then there'll be one person from the group that'll just give their ideas to the rest of the group. This doesn't need to be very formal. We're just kind of brainstorming here. So once you get into your group, introduce yourself, and then start discussing.
Hi, I got kicked out of the meeting. My
Oh,
internet
okay.
went down.
Let's see.
I was in room 6, I think.
Oh, great. Okay. I will try and put you back to room 6. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi.
Hi. How are you all doing?
We're doing good.
Okay.
Yeah, we just
Yes. Great.
We
Yep.
worked through most of the questions. We thought you were gonna like screen share the rest of the questions, so I think we got through like most of them.
Oh, okay. I can screen share the rest.
Okay.
I'll do that now. Okay. How are you all going to be graded this semester? Group 1, let me know what you were thinking as we were talking about grading. Do you all know your group numbers?
I think we kind of agreed on like how we'd been graded in the past, which was more or less like on effort and obviously turning in like a complete piece of work.
Mhm.
For our group, we kind of discussed and kind of agreed that it should be kind of a combination of like effort, like not just like drawing stick figures or anything like that, but like actually showing you put time into it.
Okay.
And also, if you accomplished what you were supposed to, like what the assignment actually told you to do, like if you're like after a certain compositional feature or going for a certain style or aesthetic, just like having an intention behind it
Great.
is important. So that's another thing we kind of took into account.
Excellent. What else did people discuss?
Likewise with the other groups, our group as well said effort and but also showing more initiative and like taking risks, like the other factor. Like if you have a bunch of sketches, even though you might not be the best drawer, if you have a different bunch of trial runs and you have a kind of like a base of all the effort and work you put into your assignment, you should be graded on that.
Great. Anyone else? What should you not be graded on? What should we not take into consideration?
I mean, not everybody has extreme technical skill, so like it shouldn't be like super high bar
Yeah.
that you're looking for.
We're not in art school here. None of you, I think, are going to, well, none of you can major in art. So this is not how close can you draw to reality, obviously. Yeah.
I mean, unless you can do that, then I mean, go for it.
Exactly. Yeah, show off your skills if you got them. Anyone else?
I guess I would just say leaving room for flexibility and for people to be able to experiment. So sometimes you want to do something that's minimalist and that doesn't detract As long as I like somebody said intention, so long as there's intention behind what is being created.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you exactly. I'm not going to say you need to draw a person with a blue balloon with a moon setting behind them. Go. Obviously, these projects are kind of open to interpretation and give you all flexibility because I want you to make something that you want to make, not just trying to please the assignment. So, anything else? Okay. Great. Does anyone have any last questions on what you're doing on Thursday? So there's a few readings that you will be doing. Some are PDFs, some are links to articles. And you will start working on your figure, on your figurehead. And remember, that's not due till the 9th. And sorry, I'm getting distracted by someone. Great. I will be on Zoom. I'll be online if you have any questions on Thursday. Also, I'll answer emails if you have any. Remember, today by 5 o'clock, submit your Turner analysis and submit your shipwreck drawing that you all did based on the poem by Wednesday at noon. Great. It was nice to see everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you next Tuesday, if not before, if you need me.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.